While flying over a remote area, Pilot Jack noticed a strange sight below a group of animals running in circles. Intrigued by the unusual behavior, he decided to land nearby to get a closer look. As he got closer to the animals, his stomach dropped. Jack was a hobby pilot and owner of his own helicopter. Every weekend, he would fly around, enjoying the views. Jack knew he had to see more, so he lowered his helicopter a little further. That was when he realized it was actually a large group of animals running in circles. After landing his plane perfectly, Jack walked to the place where he had seen the animals. He could hear their hooves hitting the ground as they ran at full speed, even before he was close enough to see them. Finally, he stood face to face with the group of animals and he gasped loudly. It was a group of deer, larger than he had ever seen before. It was like they were in a trance. Suddenly, Jack spotted something in the middle of the circle. His eyes grew wide in shock as he scrambled for his phone and dialed 911. Jack wasn't sure what to tell the dispatcher. He wanted it to sound believable so they would send the police, but he also knew how strange this situation was. "I have found something that I believe needs the police's attention," he eventually said. His voice was urgent with a slight tremor of fear. As he hung up the phone, Jack suddenly felt a sharp pain in his back. He fell to the ground and everything turned black. He had no idea how long he had been knocked out on the ground. But when he woke up again, one side of his face was numb from the cold and his clothes were soaked because of the snow. His eyes struggled to focus, scanning the horizon for any sign of shelter or safety, but all he saw was the endless swirl of white. Jack realized he was in the path of a stampede. Panic surged as he looked for an escape, but the animals moved too fast, their numbers too great. Despite the throbbing pain in his head and the numbing cold, Jack knew he couldn't stay still. He glanced around, spotting a cluster of trees nearby. He quickly scanned his surroundings, realizing the forest might offer some cover from the stampede. He dodged between trees, trying to keep as quiet as possible, while the sound of the stampede grew louder around him. Looking for any advantage, he tried to predict the deer's movements, looking for patterns or pauses in the stampede that he could use to his benefit. Jack, catching his breath behind a tree, peered out at the enclosing ring of deer. He assessed his situation, noting the gaps between the animals as they moved. He observed the pattern of the deer, timing their movements. This path, risky as it was, seemed like his best chance to get away from the outer edges of the stampede, where he was more exposed to danger. With his heart pounding in his chest, Jack waited for the right moment. As soon as a gap widened, he seized his chance. Pushing off from the tree, he sprinted with all his might towards the center, dodging the startled deer. His legs pumped furiously, driven by a burst of adrenaline. Reaching the relative calm of the center, Jack allowed himself a moment to catch his breath. The difference was stark. The frenzied motion and noise of the stampede were now at a distance, surrounding him but not engulfing him. Jack's initial panic morphed into decisive action when he spotted a huddled form near a tree. The figure was still, almost blending into the snowy background. The urgency to find out pushed Jack forward, despite the uncertainty and potential danger of the situation. As Jack neared the figure, he could see it was a man, unconscious and looking worse for wear. The man's presence confirmed Jack wasn't alone in this ordeal. He knelt beside him, checking for any signs of life. This discovery was a grim reminder of the situation's severity, showing that the stampede had affected more than just himself. The sight of the injured man stirred a sense of urgency in Jack. He couldn't just leave him there. The man needed help. Jack looked around for anything he could use as a makeshift stretcher or for any sign of a path they could take to safety. With determination, Jack prepared to move the man to a safer location. Knowing that staying put was not an option, Jack started dragging the man towards the center of the circle, a place he deemed relatively safer. Each movement was calculated, ensuring they remained as hidden as possible from whatever dangers lurked. Jack, with quick thinking, tore pieces from his clothing to create makeshift bandages for the injured man. He carefully wrapped the wounds, trying to stop any bleeding and offer some protection against the cold. The injured man stirred slightly, a faint murmur escaping his lips. This small sign of life was a monumental victory for Jack, who had been working tirelessly to keep them both alive. Jack noticed a change in the deer's behavior. They seemed to slow down, their circling less frantic. He wondered if they sensed something he didn't. Suddenly, the distant sound of sirens cut through the silence, a beacon of hope in the snowy expanse. Jack perked up, his heart racing with the promise of rescue. He whispered words of reassurance to the injured man, promising that help was close. This moment of impending rescue filled Jack with a profound thankfulness, despite the ordeal they had endured. As the rescue team approached, the deer surrounding Jack and the injured man began to part ways, almost as if guided by an unseen force. The rescue team arrived with precision and efficiency, a stark contrast to the chaos that had reigned before. Paramedics, accompanied by police officers, quickly assessed the situation, their movements practiced and coordinated. Paramedics immediately tended to the injured man, providing first aid and preparing him for transport. Jack watched as they worked with speed and expertise, grateful for their immediate attention. Police officers questioned him briefly, ensuring his well-being and gathering information about their ordeal. The seamless transition from survival mode to receiving professional care was both surreal and comforting for Jack. For Jack, it was a moment of realization that there's much more to the natural world than meets the eye, a lesson he would carry with him long after the rescue. As the injured man regained consciousness, he shared his story with Jack and the rescuers. He revealed that he was a local deer farmer and that the stampede was actually a protective act by the deer against a wolf threat. This explanation shed light on the mysterious behavior of the deer, offering clarity and a deeper understanding of the events that unfolded. After the commotion settled, the farmer, now on his feet, turned to Jack with a look of profound gratitude. He extended an invitation to his farm, a gesture symbolizing not just thanks but an offer of friendship. The day's events concluded with a note of optimism. Despite the challenges faced, the strength found in adversity and the unexpected bonds formed were a beacon of hope.